Welcome to Generation Digital Workforce, the podcast that's here to explore the role of robotic process automation and other digital technologies. Whether you're just getting started or you're looking for advanced strategies and tactics, if you're curious about where human and digital workers are coming together to transform the future of work, then this podcast is for you. All right, let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Hairston with Blue Prism. Today on the Generation Digital Workforce, I am very excited to have as my guest Jet Theuerkauf, the Chief Customer Officer of Blue Prism, who is based in New York City. Today, I'm going to be talking with Jet about a very important topic, how to uncover automation opportunities across the organization. Welcome, Jet. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Brad. It's great to be here.
So, Jet, why don't you start us off just with an introduction? Talk about your career path and also what you do here at Blue Prism.
I've been here about 2 years now as the Chief Customer Officer, and I'll get in a little bit about what that means. But prior to coming to BP, I was the head of transformation for Bank of New York Mellon, better known as Boney. For those of us who've been around the financial district in New York for a few years, you would probably recognize us by that name, or BNY Mellon is another acronym we went by. During that time, about the 3 years there, part of my remit as the transformation lead was to institutionalize our robotics efforts, which we were then calling it. We started that from scratch, and being a former Automation Anywhere user, I really thought we were going to be using AA. But as we ran our infamous now horse race, which tested the various technologies that were out there in the RPA space, we came to find out, who was really going to be the best choice for large scale, reusable, sustainable, and, really secure environment for an organization that was really looking to be enterprise scaling and transformative in nature when it came to building what we now refer to as a digital workforce. And Blue Prism, of course, was the one that came to the top of the pyramid to us for that, and helped us really grow and do some very, very unique things back almost now 5 years ago, and really was set us off in a different direction from many in the industry for what we were able to accomplish, and brought me eventually to Blue Prism. And so over the last 2.5 years, I've been here bringing about the experiences that I've had, not only just at Boney, but leading large-scale transformations with other major financial institutions, ranging from our friends at Sberbank in Russia to organizations like HSBC, Credit Suisse, and Commonwealth Bank of Australia, their sister company in New Zealand, Auckland Savings Bank. So I've, really bringing about the experiences and lessons learned from all these organizations, and helping us build out our customer office in Blue Prism to share those successes within that organization with our customers. So it's been a fast couple of years, and looking forward to sharing some of those lessons today with you, Brad, and the audience.
Excellent. Thank you for that background, Jet. And you're definitely the perfect person, I should say, to address this topic today with us. So let's get into it. So it seems like organizations everywhere are asking the question constantly, what should I automate? Not just companies that are exploring intelligent automation, but even those that have an established digital workforce, and in the latter case, many of these companies started strong. They did some automations, maybe several, but then they kind of lost momentum along the way. So even those companies are asking the question, what should I automate? What should I automate?
Sure.
So as someone who has led large scale automation efforts, and now you help customers, navigate their journey, Can you answer the question? I mean, why is this coming up? Why is this such a dilemma for most organizations?
Well, I think it's been very common throughout. I don't know that it's even just limited to RPA. I think it's with any change effort. Are we getting out what we expected is a question that comes about in any kind of transformative initiative that I've been a part of and seen.
Right.
But again, I think it's more, a question now with the digital workforce coming to bear in organizations, because there's been a lot of hype around. Let's put that right out there. There's been a lot of promises made about how fast you can build things, about how much money can be saved, and how fast production can be sped up, and all kinds of things have been done and have been published about this. And in some of it is warranted. There is a lot that can be gained. And I think, again, given the right types of partners, given the right type of product chosen, given the right type of implementation, staffing that companies employ, given the right successful championing by the executives within those organizations, things can happen. But you still are going to have to deal with some of the inevitable scenarios that companies are going to face, such as, they oftentimes, I find companies will come up with a view that they believe that anything can be automated and it's easy to automate. And, that it's almost a dreamlike state that they may have been sold on an idea that these automations are easy to do and it requires very little work or effort.
Right.
And yes, even our product is very easy. You don't need to be a developer, a coder to use it. It's very low, no code oriented. If you can draw a flow chart with a piece of paper and a pencil, or you can do it on a Visio type diagram, well, you can quote unquote program within Blue Prism. That's how easy it is. Now that's the easy part. The real challenge gets to be is really finding the right kinds of things to automate, the right type of work. And, as Jason Kingdon, our CEO, loves to tell people, you only need to bring your imagination. And your imagination is the only limitation that will prevent you from finding the kinds of things to automate, because you need to have the right kinds of people around you. You need to be able to think of this as the art of the possible. You need to be thinking about this as, well, why would we continue to do work this way if I can employ a digital worker? If I could build a digital worker to do the kinds of things that people are doing, so that I can free those people up to do more important work, more useful work to customers, more empathetic oriented work to help our customers, more insightful, creative kinds of work that right now we don't need to have our digital workers or capable of having digital workers do that. And we want our humans involved in that because it makes sense to have them involved in that. Then why wouldn't we do that? That may mean that we have to re-engineer or redesign our work around us. And that's something I think that oftentimes companies aren't thinking that way. They're looking at the way that processes are built and trying to automate those processes. And they find out that there's often not a strong enough financial business case in them. So they haven't gone that next step in thinking about, well, what if I built a process from the viewpoint of, if I built it with digital workers doing it first, and I inserted human workers only where I needed them. And I think, again, the challenge is breaking our old way of thinking, the old way of thinking about how work is going to get done. And I think that's a very important point. We don't have to have work getting done in the same way. And oftentimes we don't even need to have that work being done, because the re-engineering may help us get rid of unnecessary work. Then what's left is something that's absolutely able to be done by a digital worker. So hopefully that gives a couple of thoughts and ideas and ways that we can help customers think differently about it, or even somebody who's thinking about using a digital workforce in their organization. Is that, it's not easy to find necessarily the right work to be automated. The automation part is pretty straightforward and can be done with non-technical people, which is a great thing about Blue Prism. And when you let yourself bring your imagination to the table and think, what if we use digital workers first in our way that we're going to get work done? You'll be amazed by the depth and breadth of automation that you can do in your organizations.
Very interesting. So, Jet, many organizations who have a digital workforce have put a center of excellence in place, and many of those organizations are, really depending on the COE to be the group that's going out looking, for additional automation beyond the initial, use cases that were tackled. Is that the right place for that to happen? Could you just speak to that? I'm just curious if that's who you would expect to be leading the charge in scaling and growing the scope of automation across a company.
Well, the good thing about these kinds of initiatives and anything about change is there's never going to be one best answer or one right answer. There will be answers that will fit various circumstances. So good news is you're going to be able to pick from a list of multiple better practices. Not necessarily best, but better practices. And I think we continue to refine those better practices into best practices at some point down the line as we have more and more history behind us. And a couple of examples about these kinds of things. So, the COEs, the centers of excellence, or, automation areas where people will be housed to manage and deliver the automation programs or deliver digital workers from. These are the place where you normally will find the basic skill sets required to lead these types of initiatives. Now, is this the area that your question around, is this the best place that you're going to find to lead the charge? Well, the charge is led from multiple fronts in actuality, right? So you need that led at a very visible, very high level within the organization. We know that, change theory has taught us two things. One, that you can certainly lead from the top. There's a lot of advantages about doing that. You get the runways cleared very easily. The rest of the organization sees that this is an important initiative that's being undertaken, and that you will be able to get resources and funding and things cleared out of the way that may be standing in your way a lot faster when you have that support from a C-suite sponsor or a direct report into a C-suite. There's also the other change practice that we see that works is when you start a little bit deeper within the organization, but not too deep that you lose the light of day, but deeper within the organization and you build momentum. That momentum gets recognized by the upper level executives, and then they pull that initiative up and deem it something important enough because it's been proven that now they want to sponsor that across the entire organization. And so again, there's more of the grassroots approach as well. So I think, again, this is, a couple different ways that people can go about that. But the key features here for either one is making sure that you have visibility. It's visibility from the people that are important influencers within your organization. Mm-hmm. The difference between influencers and those that hold titles. And so it's understanding who are the influencers and the decision makers within any organization, and make sure that, they've got visibility and see what you're doing if you're leading one of these initiatives. And then as you're beginning to develop, make sure you have the right metrics out there, understanding that, how do you measure success of your program? Whether that is the types of benefits that you need to achieve and making sure that those are recognized and you publish those types of benefits, or whether or not it's a productivity of the digital workers, as an example, whether you need to use a single pane of glass technology type of program that allows you to show all of the processes that are being run, which we can do within Blue Prism itself, or we drill down even further, which can show down to the minute detail every single thing that the digital worker is doing at any moment in time. And again, these are the kinds of things that can, again, show different types of stakeholders within the organization from the COE, if you will, that you have control, you're managing risk, you're driving productivity, just like you would if you were managing a group of people and you had a manager who had daily reports or stand-up meetings if you're agile and you're using visual management boards, VMBs, and you had your HR system that was able to report on people's attendance and their sick days. You had your performance system that was telling them how they were doing with their quarterly, their semi-annual and annual performance reviews. They were being trained, so you had training records on them. We can do exactly the same things with the COE technologies that not only our technical partners bring us, but also the artificial intelligence that we're building within the platform itself. And we can show exactly what's being done with those digital workers. So all of this is housed within the COE in most cases, but it's also, again, important that those sponsors, those influencers, those decision makers are all very well aware of what's going on within this team and how all of these components are being brought to bear, and the fantastic capabilities that this digital workforce from Blue Prism is at bringing about change, and the productivity that they can gain from that within their organization, and how that's going to then be brought about to bear the benefits that the organization is looking for.
Yeah, gotcha. Jet, you mentioned earlier the importance of understanding the art of the possible. How can companies develop, a more clear understanding of that, so that it can help them as they're, looking for additional automation opportunities across the organization?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brad. I think, again, oftentimes, a number of our customers that I've been working with recently have I think either forgotten some of the messages that we've presented to them over the last couple of years, or quite frankly, maybe we haven't done as best as we could have of sharing with them experiences that other customers have had, or shown them, quite honestly, the kinds of capabilities that we've already developed and continuing to develop in the world of artificial intelligence that's not only surrounding in our platform with the ecosystem that we've developed and continually to add to on a quarterly basis, but also what's already in the platform that's getting built in within the shrink wrap product that we deliver. And, I think, again, if you look at what oftentimes I hear from customers, it's that, well, you guys are the ones, we use you guys to do, those big rote processes where we have a lot of people doing, filling in forms or go getting information and making address corrections or those kinds of things. And they don't expand beyond that because, that's what they thought a robot, quote unquote, did, or a digital worker could.
Right.
They didn't think about, or didn't realize, or didn't have the information to understand the intelligence that we get are already in the product that's sitting in their data center, or in the cloud, or that the other types of intelligence that they could simply plug and play into the platform because of the ecosystem that surrounds Blue Prism's digital workforce. And each digital worker can be skilled whichever way they want. They don't have to be the same either. They can have various levels, just like each human being in your human workforce has varying levels of skills and technical knowledge and human capabilities. So, again, I think it's one of the things that we are probably at a great advantage as a technology company. And it's one of the things that drove me to Blue Prism from being one of the former competitors' users, even though I didn't necessarily use it as a large scale, but we were testing it, using it in labs, and we did some pilots and things with the other product. It was day and night difference about what we could do, the way we could begin to build and mimic what a human worker needed to do to be able to do work in the bank. And we were able to understand very quickly that if we could mimic certain of those skills and capabilities within a digital worker, like the ability to ingest data, semi-structured and unstructured data. And what we called that in our simple speak was to be able to see and read. And so we then brought in and very simply plugged in an OCR engine that had and brought in a machine learning capability to help us do that. And it plugged right into Blue Prism. And so we began to make our digital workers more and more intelligent because we gave them eyes and part of a brain to be able to understand and read these documents and make heads or tails out of them so that they knew what to do with them when they got them. And that was really important for us because what it did is it took us from, in one case specifically, it took us from being able to do about 10% of a process, which yielded about that 10% yield in productivity was worth about 30 FTE worth of savings to something once we had made the digital workers more intelligent, be able to read and ingest and understand the data that they were seeing. That allowed us to get closer to 50% productivity and a considerably larger amount in FTE savings in that regard. So these are the kinds of things that for us, when we talk about the art of the possible, this is not pie in the sky. This literally is the real possibility of what you can do with Blue Prism. And it's not something that is hard to do because this is not something that people haven't already done. The example I just gave you is an example that's over 3 years old. And so again, these are very simple types of additional skill sets that can be given to your out of the box Blue Prism software that can make a huge change in the way that you go about looking for automation, because now you're not just thinking about, well, the Blue Prism automation capability is limited to taking this type of data that's very structured and it has to be in these kinds of systems and things and being able to put fingers on a keyboard. And that's about the capability that the digital worker from Blue Prism right out of the box does. Not at all. Not at all. Decipher itself, our newest, our own creation of the ability to ingest data. It's our intelligent data tool. That's our version of eyes. That is free. It comes with our product. When you have paid support, that comes right with the product itself. You'll be able to plug that in. And the first skills that we're training the tool to use is to be able to ingest POs and invoices, because it's the largest thing our customers all told us is, hey, if you could help us with that, that's a huge amount of work that we wouldn't have to do anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's what we train the tool automatically to be able to do. Now, of course, everybody's got to do a little tweak, and because everybody's POs will be a little bit different and their invoices will be a little bit different. But imagine in your companies out there, how many people we can help if we could just help them take care of that and start automating all the things around POs and invoices.
So, Jet, to answer the question, what do I automate? I want to ask you to just provide some ideas or some examples based on, your BNY Mellon experience, and also maybe, some things you've seen just across some of Blue Prism's most successful customer implementations. So could you share just a few of those things?
Sure. Well, I think I touched on one already, Brad. I would look at, where do you have, large pools of people? And this is a little differently than maybe others may think about it. I'm not getting down to necessarily the task level, the process level, but where do you have the largest groups of people working? And, you got to apply some common sense in this as well when you begin to look at this kind of analysis. And when you begin to look at those pools of people, that's kind of your first vector that you're going to apply.
Right.
Second approach to that analysis will be, okay, great. Now I've got my pools or my partitions of those skill sets. The next thing to ask yourself then is, great, can I create similar skills in a digital workforce using Blue Prism and the ecosystem that they've created through our digital exchange with the partners that we have to be able to recreate those skills? How easy, how hard would that be to do? Now, the great thing is, your organization, a lot of those technologies already within your organization. We did, as an example, we already had OCR engines. We had 3 of them, as a matter of fact. We had to pick one, and we did. So we were already competent in the technology that we chose to give us the eyes of the digital workers at Blue Prism. At Bank New York Mellon, using Blue Prism as our platform. So I think it's important that it gives you then an ability. The first thing it does is you can begin to look to see, well, wait a minute, that area that has this number of people in it doing this kind of work, we could recreate digital workers that have very similar skills. And now we may be able then to go in and you start looking then at the task level, because now you're going to be able to say, well, we could reimagine that work from a digital worker first perspective, and then reimagine that work, redesign it from a digital worker first and what we call human in the loop second approach. So that allows us to have a very quick assessment of where might be a great first, second, third place to go in and look for automation opportunities. The next way of looking at automation opportunities for us was this thing called vertical automation. And vertical automations are a very different way of looking at things. And so the example I'll give when I use it always seems to resonate with people. And it comes out of the finance areas within organizations. But I would postulate that's not the only place it would be applicable. And so in finance, it would look like this. In a lot of companies, there are reporting teams, and financial reporting teams. Those financial reporting teams will do a number of different types of financial reports. And there'll be some that are daily, weekly, monthly. And what's interesting when you look at them, they do about the same kinds of things. They will, what they're actually doing varies very little, number one. And where they go get the data, they get it from very similar sources. And so when you begin to map them out, as you always do when you were going to begin to look at, is this process automatable, is you begin to create a process flow and you map those out. Well, in the example of Bank New York Mellon, we had a pretty large reporting team, and we had a pretty significant number of individual teams within that larger reporting team. And so we had to break all those down. And with the team, my re-engineering team, started mapping them all out. Well, when they mapped them all out by individual sub-team, you began to see that, guess what? The processes they were doing, if you started automating each of those individual processes, you wouldn't save a lot. There wasn't a lot of productivity gain. There just didn't seem to be a lot of benefit from automating each of those individual teams' processes, even though they were very, very similar. But one evening, we actually noticed that because they were all written up on a wall, series of walls, we call it the war room, and we could see that by sub-team, if you stacked all the processes, and most of the teams had 5 or 6 or 7 different reporting processes, and you looked at the level 2 of the description of the process, which is pretty high level, they were always the same. So you notice that, well, wait a minute, if they, at level 2 of a process, if they were 7 types of reports that they were doing amongst the sub team, and at level 2 processing, it was exactly the same, well, there must be something here. And so the concept of vertical integrations and vertical automations became the new way of thinking about automations. So instead of automating from end to end, left to right, as we traditionally think about it, we began thinking about automating from top to bottom or bottom to top. So here's the way that it looked. So when you were in a reporting function in finance, the first thing that you did when you came into your reporting function in the organization they worked in at level 2 was go get data. That was like the very first thing every single reporting team did. Now, if you think about that, why do we need to have human beings going and getting data? That's a very, very easy thing to go automate. And if every single reporting team starts at the same time every day, and they're all going to get data, and we can figure out where they're going to get data, what data they're going to get, how they go get it, what do they do with it, why wouldn't we automate that? Why couldn't we automate that for every single team? And what if we grouped teams together that went to do the same source data to get the data? And then what if, and we started going through all these kind of what if scenarios. At the end of the day, we freed up about 50% of the resources. And that's a pretty amazing scenario. Now, you can imagine that it also allowed us to do a lot more very deep research and analytics with that freed up capacity, because everything we did wasn't about cost reduction. It was also about freeing up capacity so that we could do work never had the ability to do. And because we were a bank, we're always very cost conscious. You couldn't get headcount, but now we had freed up capability, and these were really smart people. So now we could turn them on to things that we'd always wanted to know, but we never had the manpower to be able to go in and find out these hidden gems that were sitting there in the data because they were head down doing work they didn't need to be doing, like go get data. The next step in that process was transform data. And we looked at each other, and there was about 4 of us in the room that night saying, are you kidding me? We're actually paying, very highly trained people to transform data from one system into another. That's just crazy. So these are the kinds of things, these are 2 little hints I would give you, as these are really easy to go and look at ways to find opportunities in your organizations. And the last one is simple workshops, and again, it's using things like outside perspectives from advisors to Blue Prism's own customer success people, our professional services people, to share other stories and other examples from their own industries or other industries that can help customers think differently, and run workshops and really try to what we call discover what is the art of the possible. What could you be doing that you've not thought about? Because that's really, really important. And make sure you have people within your organization that have re-engineering and redesigning skills so that they can help you go through that process of changing processes and thinking about putting digital workers into the process first, and have digital workers do as much as they can before you bring in the humans in the loop, kind of an approach. And again, I think if that's taken, it's amazing about what you can actually do and what can be accomplished, because the technology is getting better. It's faster, it's easier, it's more nimble, because we've always been secure, sustainable, expansive. So again, it's always had those characteristics about it. Now we're becoming more agile, more nimble, more creative in the way that the AI allows you to be, to take on bigger, different, more challenging work than what people would have thought about. So again, I think these are a couple of things I hope people will find helpful.
Well, Jet, thank you for that food for thought. That was really good. I think people were going to really find this to be insightful, because again, this question seems to be pervasive in the market. Everyone's asking the question, what do I automate? So thanks for your time and your inputs, and be well.
Thank you very much, Brad. And I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of our stories and my personal stories as well. I wish you and your family well, and be safe, and wish everybody out there that's listening the same. And if there's anything that we can do at Blue Prism in the customer office, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Generation Digital Workforce. If you want to hear more about RPA, AI, and other cognitive technologies that are shaping the future of work, join us next time as we continue to go deeper on these topics with industry innovators and experts. To make sure you never miss a future episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. And if you've liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. It's one of the best ways to help more people find valuable content. For show notes and more info, visit us at blueprism.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.